Welcome to this edition of Lord Cultural Resources Culture Break. Today, we have the great honor of having with us Dr. Gus Casely-Hayford, Director of the V&A East Museum or project. Dr. Casely-Hayford, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Javier. It's wonderful to be here. It's my honor completely.
How did you end up being a cultural professional, a Director of V&A East?
My journey to my particular role is a kind of long and circuitous one, but my earliest memories of culture were of watching my brother who grew from this kind of prodigious child who was incredibly creative into a fashion designer. But I remember him when I was probably about 6 or something and watching him drawing and painting in our living room at home, and just watching creativity at quite a proficient level just playing out in front of me, and realizing what a special thing it is to have that level of talent, but to be able to share it with other people. And it was a kind of a moment of awakening for me, a kind of a shift in my understanding of the things that I would want to do and how I would want to contribute. Because there is something about kind of culture which we can all relate to, but seeing things actually being made before your very eyes is transformative. It's that sense of the potential of humanity, of how art can actually communicate between people across time and across geography in very powerful ways. And for me, growing up as we were then in South London, this sense of how one can actually relocate oneself through culture into really kind of in very, very powerful ways. It made me want to not just study culture, but to go to museums, to read about culture, to study it, and through the lives of great artists and makers to discover the world. And that was the thing that really got into my bones, this idea of culture being a mechanism for connecting us to other places and other people, and additionally to other times. I've continued to do that across the course of my career. The glorious things that attracted me to my new role at V&A East was an institution and a proposition that seemed to really speak to those challenges, an opportunity to truly deliver to a new audience and to do so in new ways, to bring a truly great collection to one of the most diverse audiences that any museum would have ever attracted. I mean, that as a set of challenges is enormously attractive.
Mm-hmm, indeed. And you know, the geographies of London are so different. So maybe we could expand a little bit on that and why it's important to be located as a V&A institution beyond South Kensington.
And London is a gorgeous city and one of the most demographically complex in the world, with people who have come from all over the world. You know, many people who have been here many generations, but whose ancestry links them to other parts of the world as well. It's also a very international city that has, over the course of thousands of years, evolved through contact with other parts of the world. And yet, if you visit its national museums, you will see these sorts of stories reflected very well through the collections, but not necessarily so well either through the staff or through audiences. And what V&A East offered was an opportunity to recalibrate some of that. We lost our collection centre, which was sited in West London, in one of the wealthier parts of the city. And we thought this would be an opportunity to build a new collection centre in a part of the city which hasn't traditionally had state-funded arts provision, in East London. And this is a part of London which, Stratford, which hosted the Olympics in 2012. So has amazing kind of infrastructure, that was put in place for the Olympics, great transport facilities, a beautiful park, great sporting facilities. It still has a large stadium, huge swimming facilities, but not necessarily great arts provision. And there was an agreement with government, both national and local, that this would be an opportunity 10 years on from the Olympics to really try to think about how we invest in delivering that additional plank of Olympic ambition, that beyond just being about sporting excellence, that original Olympic idea was also about academic and artistic excellence as well. And so on that site, now the government are investing in a range of new cultural institutions. Also, amongst all of this new investment in cultural infrastructure, there will be a new V&A East. And this will be a two-part institution, a new museum that will be able to tell stories of its collection in new ways, but also there will be experimental space, exhibition space for new exhibitions as well. And then 5 minutes walk away to build a new space for our collection center, a space that's going to house 280,000 objects that will tell 5,000 years of human story, the human creativity through some of the most glorious things ever made. And it's designed by Liz Diller with glass floors, glass balustrades, so you can stand in the center of the building, and if you were to pirouette around, you could see the greater part of 250,000 objects. And we want to transform people's engagement with those collections by offering hands-on, the chance for anyone to handle our objects. You don't have to come with an appointment, but the way in which we will interface our objects is with the presumption that they should and can be handled, and we will then work back from that to think about what we would need to put in a case. But the presumption is that our objects are there to be handled by our visitors, and then we want to take them out into communities. We're going to visit every school in the 4 boroughs and actually give young people hands-on time with our collection. So it's a different kind of dynamic for a collection and for a museum.
Absolutely, and so different from the storage that I guess the institution had in the past. I think that's what I find very revolutionary about the research center, that I think it kind of moves access from researchers to the common people, right? I think that's what's fascinating about this project, also locating it in that place, so it opens up so many opportunities. I guess I wanted to ask, how do you feel, if at all, that COVID may have impacted or changed any of the plans that you had in mind for the project, or if maybe it has accelerated some things as it has with other aspects of society? I'd be curious to hear about the impact.
Well, COVID, but also what it coincided with, which was Me Too and Black Lives Matters, have transformed, I think, not just our project, but the nature of the arts. That I mean, for us, in terms of practicalities, it has delayed the building, which and having kind of social distancing as well as periods of lockdown, it has kind of transformed the budget and made that kind of more challenging. But the bigger proposition of the shift in the context and the need is the more fundamental thing, that I think post the pandemic and post these sorts of changes in the way in which we're thinking about issues of equity, that what we're doing feels different. And I think the idea of giving back a collection to its rightful owners, the public, I think has become something that we're treating with a greater sense of urgency. We can no longer kind of talk about the public as a group that we are doing things to, that this is a partnership that we want to work with, for. We want the public to feel like our spaces are theirs, that our objects are theirs, that our concerns are theirs. And I think that fundamental kind of shift that one feels across the public sector has been beautifully timed for us, because it is actually informing the way in which we're thinking about the programs that we're delivering across V&A East.
Thank you so much, Dr. Casely-Hayford, for your time today, and best of luck.
Thank you so much, Javier. Wonderful to speak to you. And please do come and visit. It's a great project, 2024 for the collection centre, the storehouse, and the following year for the museum. And you'd all be so welcome. We look forward to seeing you.